Hello to all my viewers. Today, we will be looking at a horror film titled A Nightmare on Elm Street. There will be spoilers, so watch out and take care. As our story begins, an unknown man with dirty-ass hands is working with different materials in order to craft a very frightening-looking glove. We cut to a pretty blonde girl, Tina, who is running down a dank dirty hallway. A man is calling her name, but then, a sheep jump scares Tina. Bad sheep. Tina continues running through an industrial-type setting until she comes to a dead end. The man with the razor gloves jumps out and scares the bejesus out of Tina. Lucky for her, it was all a dream. Or was it? As Tina notices that her nightgown is shredded, her mother, who is obviously under the influence, suggests that she cut her fingernails. Tina lays back down, this time clutching her crucifix for comfort. The next day, Tina and her friends arrive at school. Tina is talking about her bad dream when her friend, Nancy, says that she had a bad dream last night as well. Nancy's boyfriend, Johnny Depp, doesn't admit it outright, but he seems to have had a bad dream too. Spooky. We cut to Tina's house later that night, where Nancy and Johnny Depp are sleeping over to make the uneasy Tina feel better. Johnny Depp hears something outside, and after investigating, he gets bro-tackled by Tina's boyfriend, Rowdy Rod. After their hormone game, Tina hears a sound and gets up to investigate. She hears the familiar voice of the man from their dreams call her name, and it is now clear that Tina has entered a dream state. She walks outside, following the strange sounds until she sees the horribly burned man walking towards her with his arms stretched out like Stretch Armstrong. Seeing this, Tina can only whimper, "Please, God." While the burned man roars, "This is God." The burned man begins chasing Tina like one of those haunted house employees, and Tina runs for her life. The man calls Tina's name and tells her to watch as he slices off two of his fingers with his razor glove. He doesn't get the reaction he was hoping for, so he grabs onto Tina at her front door. Tina tries to push the man's face away from her, and his face tears off while he laughs maniacally. Tina's screams finally wake her boyfriend, and he pulls the blankets from the bed to see Tina flailing and screaming for help. Rowdy Rod watches as slashes suddenly appear down Tina's chest. Rowdy Rod can't believe what he is seeing as Tina floats in the air as she flails about. With a defeated look, Rowdy Rod can only watch as Tina is impossibly dragged up onto the ceiling before being dropped back down onto the bed. Nancy and Johnny Depp break into the room just as Rowdy Rod escapes out the window, and they are stunned to see such a smelly mess. Sadly, they see that their friend Tina is now dead. We cut to the police station where Nancy's father, Detective, is getting the details of what happened. He scolds Nancy's mother, Marge, and asks why Nancy was not at home. You can tell this divorce didn't play out nicely. Detective thinks that Rowdy Rod killed Tina, but Nancy defends Rod and tells them that Tina dreamed about this happening. The next morning, Nancy is walking to school when suddenly, Rowdy Rod pops out of the bushes and grabs her. She asks him if he killed Tina, and he denies it, saying there was someone else there. Then, Detective appears, pointing a gun at Rowdy Rod. The police catch Rod, putting an end to his rowdy ways. In the next scene, Nancy is in class, looking drowsy AF. She falls asleep and sees Tina standing in the hallway inside of a body bag. Oddly, she follows the body bag down the hallway and runs into a hall monitor who is wearing a familiar-looking sweater. While running away, the hall monitor's voice changes into the burned man's voice, and he tells her, "No running in the hallways." Nancy heads down into the school's boiler room to continue looking for Ghost Tina when suddenly, the burned man walks out with an evil laugh. When he starts toward her, Nancy screams as she realizes there is a solid wall blocking the path she came in on, so she runs deeper into the boiler room. She quickly runs into a dead end and the burned man emerges, taunting her as he walks closer. It is here that we finally learn the man's name as he says, "Come to Freddy." Out of options, Nancy puts her arm against a hot pipe, successfully waking herself from the nightmare. She awakes screaming and flailing around in her classroom as her fellow students wonder what the hell is going on. Embarrassed, Nancy leaves. As she composes herself outside of the school, she is shocked to see the burn on her arm. Now she knows that getting hurt in the dream will hurt you in reality. Nancy heads to the police station, where they are holding Rod and the two talk as she tries to get more details about what he saw the night Tina was killed. Nancy finds out that Rod has been having the same nightmares about Freddy and his finger knives. Shocked by the revelation, she leaves, knowing that Rod is innocent. In the next scene, Nancy is at home, soaking her smelly body in a bath. She softly sings the children's rhyme from her dreams. 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. Unfortunately, she dozes off, and it doesn't take 1 second before Freddy tries to get Nancy's hormones. Nancy's bathtub instantly turns into a bottomless ocean of water. She struggles to swim back up through the tiny hole that contains her reality. Freddy toys with Nancy, pulling her back under again and again. Marge hears Nancy screaming and comes to help, but Nancy has fully awoken as her mother enters the bathroom. Nancy tries to play down the seriousness of what just happened in order to ease Marge's mind, but she knows that Freddy is real. Before leaving the bathroom, Nancy grabs a bottle of caffeine pills from her cabinet. She lays in her bed watching TV, trying her best to stay awake, but after almost dozing off, she gets up to open her window for some air. She gets a quick scare as she sees her boyfriend, Johnny Depp, already at her window. "How long you been out there, my dude?" Nancy asks Johnny Depp if he has had the same dreams as Tina, Rod, and herself, but he continues to tell her he hasn't. Johnny Depp doesn't seem to believe what is happening to their friends, but he still wants to help his girlfriend because he's a genuine gentleman. Nancy asks him to sit by her while she dreams, so that if she starts struggling, Johnny Depp can wake her up. Nancy is tired of just running scared, and she really wants to figure out more about Freddy's smelly ass. After falling asleep, we join Nancy in the dream world, where she roams around her town. It has a very eerie feel as it is dark and foggy. Nancy walks up to the police station and peers through the window that leads down to Rod's holding cell. Looks like he cried himself to sleep. Suddenly, Nancy sees a door open inside, and it's Freddy, walking towards Rod's cell. Nancy yells for Johnny Depp, but even genuine gentlemen have to sleep too, you know. She can only watch in horror, as Freddy straight Terminator 2's his way through the iron bars of Rod's cell. Nancy screams as Freddy reaches for Rod, but Freddy quickly disappears as Rod awakens, scratching his head. Suddenly, Tina appears, still wearing the body bag. She waves at Nancy as a millipede comes zooming out from her mouth. Yuck. Nancy begins to panic more and more as she yells for Johnny Depp to wake her up. Then, Freddy jumps out from the bushes, chasing Nancy back inside her house, but as she goes to run to her room, her feet sink into the stairs that have been turned into a smelly-looking mush. She is able to break free of the mush, and she runs inside her room, slamming the door and locking it behind her. She sees Johnny Depp has indeed failed the mission by falling asleep, so she tries to wake herself up by screaming, "It's just a dream." This is not enough to wake her as Freddy comes bursting through her door. Nancy and Freddy roll around, non-hormonally, as Nancy tries to keep the razor glove from cutting her. Just as it looks like it may be the end for Nancy, her alarm clock starts ringing, jolting her and Johnny Depp out of the dream world and away from Freddy. Nancy has a quick come-to-Jesus meeting with Johnny Depp about him not staying awake, before they rush over to the police station to check on Rod. They beg the officer to check Rod's cell, because they think he may be in danger. As we cut to Rod's cell, we see that they are right. Rod's sheets begin to start wrapping around his neck while he sleeps. Nancy begs her father to at least go and check on him, and he agrees. Before they can open the doors leading down to his cell, Freddy hoists the sheet up, hanging Rod to death. Everyone bursts into the holding cell to try and get him down, but they are too late. We cut to Rod's funeral, where everyone is mourning the rowdiest young man they knew. After the service, Nancy tells her parents the killer is still out there. As she describes Freddy's appearance, we see a little bit of shock on her parents' faces as they seem to know who she is talking about. Double spooky. Nancy's mother takes her to a clinic that does sleep studies because she doesn't know how else to help her. The doctors get Nancy settled in, and they begin to monitor her as she sleeps. As Nancy enters REM sleep, her heart rate begins to rise. She starts to flail about as she is having a nightmare about Freddy, but the doctors burst in to wake her just in time. Marge notices that a part of Nancy's hair has turned gray, which is obviously thanks to the stress that Freddy has caused her. When the doctors try to give Nancy a sedative, she pushes them away, knowing that it would be a death sentence for her. It is there that Marge notices some cuts on Nancy's arm, and even more alarming, Nancy pulls Freddy's smelly hat from under her blankets as the dream world seems to be colliding with reality. Nancy then realizes that she is able to bring items from the dream world back into reality. After they arrive back home, Nancy overhears her mother talking on the phone with someone about the smelly hat. Nancy has become a little more suspicious, as she can tell that her parents know more about what is happening to her than they are letting on. Marge tells Nancy that this just cannot be real, but Nancy holds the smelly hat, stating, "It's real, feel it." Nancy says the man's name is even written inside the hat. Fred Krueger. Marge winces at hearing that name. Nancy pleads with her mother, telling her that Freddy is after her now, so she should tell her anything she knows about him. Marge still denies knowing anything, telling Nancy to rest, so that she can feel better. Nancy lashes out, telling her mother that she could just be like her and drink her problems away. Marge slaps Nancy for the disrespect, but instantly regrets it. She tells Nancy that Fred Krueger can't come after her because he is dead. Nancy is furious that her mother knew of Fred Krueger and did not tell her. She leaves her home in a fuss and decides to go hang out with Johnny Depp. They stop on a small bridge to eat their food and talk. Johnny Depp asks Nancy if she has ever heard of the Balinese way of dreaming. He explains that they have dream skills that help them to control their dreams. He says if they encounter evil in a dream, they just turn their back on it. If they don't fear the evil, it has no power over them. Johnny Depp then comments on the book Nancy is reading about booby traps. She smiles and tells him that she is just into survival. The two part ways, and as Nancy arrives back to her home, she sees that iron bars have been installed on every single window. She shouts for her mother as she goes inside, but Marge seems calm after getting a little bit of that medicine in her. Marge tells Nancy to come downstairs with her as she is finally ready to tell her daughter everything she knows about Fred Krueger. Down in the basement, Marge crouches next to the furnace and begins to tell Nancy about Fred Krueger. She says that he was a smelly child murderer who killed at least 20 local children in the past. She tells Nancy that Freddy beat the charges against him due to a technicality. All of the local parents came together and tracked Freddy down. They barricaded him inside of the boiler room where he was living and burned the whole place down with him inside. She says that Freddy can't hurt Nancy because they killed him. Marge unwraps a bundle she retrieved from the furnace and Nancy gasps as she sees Freddy's razor glove. "I even took his knives," she says. Nancy doesn't know how to feel about learning the truth of what is happening. In the next scene, Nancy is in her room and she calls Johnny Depp. Nancy tells him that she knows everything now and she wants him to help her kill Freddy. She plans to pull Freddy out of the dream world and back into reality, just like she did with his hat. Johnny Depp still doesn't fully believe everything, but he still wants to help his girlfriend, like a gentleman should. Nancy tells him to meet her on her porch at midnight and that he should not fall asleep this time. As midnight approaches, Nancy calls Johnny Depp again, but his tired ass has fallen asleep. Knowing that he is in danger, Nancy hurries downstairs only to find her front door locked. Her mother is there on the couch and refuses to give her the key. Marge tells Nancy, "You are going to get some sleep tonight, even if it kills me." Nancy storms off as Marge continues to get lost in the sauce. We cut back to Johnny Depp sleeping soundly on his bed. Suddenly, Freddy begins to pull him down and he starts sinking through his bed. The bed swallows him completely, and then, gallons upon gallons of blood start spewing back out from the bed, and all of the blood pools on the ceiling, as if gravity were reversed. Johnny Depp's mother opens his door, and she can only shriek as she watches what used to be her son, sloshing about the room. The police arrive to Johnny Depp's house to mop up the mess, and detective sees Nancy in her window across the street. He gives a little wave to her, knowing that she must be grieving for her boyfriend, who was a genuine gentleman. As soon as detective enters the crime scene, Nancy calls him to tell him her plan of pulling Freddy out of the dream world and into reality. She tells him to come break down their front door in exactly 20 minutes to help kill Freddy. Detective does not believe Freddy is real, but he agrees with his daughter so that she will get some sleep. We then enter a quasi-Home Alone montage of Nancy setting up booby traps from the book she has been reading. Once the traps have been set, she has one more thing to do before she goes to sleep. She reconciles with her mother and tells her she loves her. Nancy sets the alarm on her watch, closes her eyes, and she is finally ready to confront Freddy head-on. In the dream world version of her house, Nancy goes down to the basement to retrieve Freddy's razor glove from the furnace, but to her surprise, it is gone. She hears a sound coming from another door in the basement and proceeds through, leading her into Freddy's lair. "Krueger, I'm here," she shouts, as she cautiously makes her way through the maze of dripping pipes and smelly steam. Nancy then finds Johnny Depp's headphones and they are covered in blood. Angrily, she screams for him to show himself. And he does. She jumps from a railing in the boiler room, and oddly, she lands in the rose bushes right outside her house. She panics as her watch begins counting down, because she needs to be holding Freddy in order to bring him back with her when she awakens. Freddy shows himself seconds before Nancy's alarm is about to go off, so she dives towards him and holds on tight. We cut to Nancy struggling in her bed as her alarm rings loudly in the background, but Freddy is nowhere to be seen. Nancy sighs, saying that she must be crazy after all, but then Freddy jumps up from behind, grabbing at Nancy with his razor glove. Nancy runs across the room and then smashes a coffee pot over Freddy's head. Freddy is stunned from the pain of the real world, and Nancy has time to run outside of her room, locking Freddy inside. She arms the sledgehammer trap that is above the door and then opens a window to shout for her father to come help her. Unfortunately, Officer Doofus is the only one to hear her, which delays her father from coming to help. Nancy and Freddy run around the house as Nancy utilizes the booby traps, which actually work quite well. She is able to set Freddy's entire body on fire and shut him in the basement while the cops come in for the rescue. Unfortunately, they see flaming footsteps that lead upstairs, and Nancy shouts that Freddy must be going for Marge. As Nancy and Detective burst through the door, Freddy is on top of Marge, and the entire bed is on fire. Detective throws a blanket on them to put out the flames, but as they pull the blanket back, they see Marge's burned corpse slowly descending into the abyss. Nancy and her father embrace, mourning the death of Marge. Nancy has a feeling that things aren't over yet and tells her father to go downstairs while she takes a moment to herself. The bedroom door slams by itself, and Nancy turns her back to the bed as a figure begins slowly rising up from the sheets. Nancy tells Freddy that she knows he is there, and he cuts himself out from the sheets. He says it's time for her to die, but she tells him that it is too late. She no longer fears Freddy and tells him that she takes back all the energy she gave him. An obviously weakened Freddy dives for Nancy, but he disappears as she opens the door to walk out. Nancy proceeds through the door and we instantly find ourselves outside, where Nancy and her mother are leaving the house. There is a dreamlike fog in the air and things seem to be on the up and up. Marge even says that she doesn't feel like hitting the sauce anymore. Johnny Depp then pulls up in a real neat convertible caddy, and even Tina and Rowdy Rod are with him. Just before they leave for school, all of the car's windows roll up and the doors lock the kids inside. The roof of the car closes, and we can see that it has the familiar red and green stripes. Nancy and her friends yell as Marge just continues to smile and wave goodbye to them. As the car pulls away, we are left with Marge standing on the front doorstep as Freddy's arm crashes through the small window on the door, pulling her entire body back into the house. Thanks for watching 7cc Movie Channel. We hope to see you in the next video.